The first time we detected the ship, nobody panicked. That came later. It was just another blip on the long-range sensors, something unusual but not immediately threatening. We'd seen plenty of anomalies before. Stray asteroids, sensor ghosts, even the occasional space debris from our own ancient exploration efforts. But this was different. This moved with purpose. Captain Sarah Chen stared at the projection hovering above the command deck, her face illuminated by the soft blue light of the holographic display. 23 years of service in the Galactic Confederation Navy hadn't prepared her for this moment. The object was approaching from the direction of a small, unremarkable yellow star system on the outer rim, one that, according to all official records, shouldn't have developed faster-than-light technology for at least another 3 centuries. "Distance?" she asked, her voice steady despite the growing unease in her gut. Lieutenant Dax, her sensor officer, checked the readings again. "Approximately 16 light minutes in closing, Captain. Current velocity suggests they'll reach our outer defense perimeter in 3 standard days." The bridge fell silent. 3 days. Not enough time to request reinforcements from Central Command. Whatever this was, her crew would face it alone. "Any response to our hails?" Chen asked, though she already knew the answer. Communications Officer Vril shook her head, all 4 of her eyes blinking in sequence, a sign of nervousness in her species. "Nothing, Captain. We've transmitted on all standard frequencies, including the Universal First Contact protocols. If they can hear us, they're choosing not to respond." That was troubling. Most civilizations making their first ventures beyond their home systems were eager to establish communication, often broadcasting their existence across multiple frequencies in their excitement. This silence felt deliberate. "Put it on the main viewer," Chen ordered. "Maximum magnification." The holographic display shifted, zooming in on the approaching vessel. It wasn't particularly large by Confederation standards, perhaps 400 meters from bow to stern. But what struck Chen wasn't its size, but its design. This wasn't a science vessel or a colony ship. The angular, armored hull, the multiple weapon emplacements visible even at this distance, the lack of external viewports. This was a warship, purpose-built for combat. Tactical analysis, she commanded, and Lieutenant Commander Orcs, her second-in-command, stepped forward. The Taurian's massive frame cast a shadow across the deck as he studied the data. "Definitely military in nature, Captain," he rumbled, mandibles clicking thoughtfully. "Hull composition appears to be primarily titanium alloy with some elements we can't immediately identify. Energy readings suggest a primitive fusion drive, though there's something unusual about the power distribution. Multiple weapon mounts, though we can't determine their exact nature without closer observation." Chen nodded slowly. "A species' first venture into deep space, and they send a warship. What does that tell us about them?" "That they're expecting trouble," Orcs replied grimly. "Or looking to cause it." Chen thought but didn't say. "Captain," Dax interrupted, his voice tight with concern. "I'm detecting a power surge from the vessel. They're charging weapons." "Shields up," Chen ordered immediately. Battle stations. The alarm klaxons wailed throughout the ship as crew members raced to their posts. The Confederation vessel, the Harmonious Exploration, had never fired its weapons outside of training exercises. It was primarily a diplomatic vessel, designed for first contact scenarios and peaceful exploration. But the Confederation wasn't naive. Even ships of peace carried teeth. "Should we power our own weapons, Captain?" Orcs asked quietly. Chen hesitated. Standard protocol was clear. Any aggressive action should be met with an immediate defensive posture. But something about this situation felt wrong. A lone warship from a pre-Confederation civilization, charging weapons against a clearly superior vessel. It was either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. Or perhaps they knew something she didn't. "Hold weapons," she decided. "Maintain shields at maximum. Let's see what they do." The tense minutes that followed stretched like hours. The unknown ship continued its approach, weapons hot, still refusing all communication. Chen studied the vessel, trying to understand the psychology of the species that built it. The design was utilitarian, functional rather than aesthetic, with none of the artistic flourishes common to most spacefaring races. These were pragmatists, engineers rather than dreamers. New energy spike. Dax called out suddenly. They're launching something. Multiple somethings. Too small to be missiles. Drones. Orcs suggested. No. Chen realized as the data streamed across her display. Communication boys. They're setting up a network. And then, finally, their communications array lit up with an incoming signal. They're hailing us, Vril confirmed, surprise evident in her voice. Audio only, translated through our systems. Chen straightened her uniform. Put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was synthetic, clearly an automated translation, but something in its cadence sent a chill down Chen's spine. Confederation vessel, it began, the words measured and precise. This is Captain Thomas Reynolds of the Earth Defense Force vessel Defiant. You have entered restricted space. Identify yourselves and state your intentions immediately. Earth. Chen had heard the name in passing. A small, isolated world that had shown promising development, but had been deemed at least 3 centuries away from achieving interstellar travel. A world that had apparently accelerated its timeline considerably. This is Captain Sarah Chen of the Galactic Confederation vessel Harmonious Exploration. We are on a routine patrol of this sector, which has been under Confederation jurisdiction for over 2,000 years. Your species is known to us, but your level of technology is unexpected. There was a long pause before the reply came. Captain Chen, the human voice responded, a new edge to its tone. Perhaps you should check your records more carefully. The Confederation may claim this sector, but Earth has never recognized that claim. As for our technology, we've had to adapt quickly. Chen exchanged glances with Orcs. This wasn't how first contacts typically proceeded. Captain Reynolds, she said carefully, I believe there's been a misunderstanding. The Confederation has no hostile intent toward Earth or any other developing world. We would welcome the opportunity to establish diplomatic relations. Another pause, longer this time. Diplomatic relations, Reynolds repeated, and there was something in his voice. Disbelief. Anger. The translation made it difficult to be certain. After what your people did to Chicago, after the Beijing incident, you'll forgive me if humanity isn't eager to sit down at the negotiating table. Chen felt her blood run cold. Chicago. Beijing. There were no records of any Confederation contact with Earth, hostile or otherwise. Captain Reynolds, she said slowly, I don't know what you believe has happened, but I assure you, the Confederation has never authorized any action against Earth or its people. The silence that followed was deafening. Then, Reynolds finally responded, we appear to have a serious problem. Because 17 months ago, ships using Confederation identification codes attacked 2 of our major cities. 3 million dead. And now here you are, in our backyard, claiming ignorance. Chen's mind raced. False flag operations, pirates using stolen IDs, or something worse, a rogue element within the Confederation itself. Captain, Dax whispered urgently, they're deploying something else. Some kind of data package. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Images began to flood the main screen. Cities in ruins, strange craft in skies, devastation on a scale that made Chen's stomach turn. And there, visible on the hull of one attacking ship, was unmistakably the emblem of the Galactic Confederation. If you're truly ignorant of these events, Reynolds' voice continued, hard as steel, then consider this your education. And if you're lying, well, humanity learned quickly from our first encounter. The Defiant isn't alone. As if on cue, Dax's console erupted with alerts. Captain. Multiple signatures detected dropping out of FTL. At least 20 vessels, all matching the design of the Defiant. Chen stared at the approaching human warship, understanding dawning with terrible clarity. This wasn't humanity's first contact with the stars. It was their second. And they had come prepared. Ken's first instinct was to raise weapons, to prepare for the fight that seemed inevitable. But 23 years of diplomatic training held her hand. If what the human captain said was true, if someone using Confederation credentials had attacked Earth, then these humans had every right to their suspicion, to their fury. All stations, maintain defensive posture only, she ordered, her voice cutting through the rising panic on the bridge. No aggressive actions. She turned to communications. Vril, open a private channel to Captain Reynolds. The tension on the bridge was palpable as they waited. The human fleet had taken position in a loose sphere around the harmonious exploration, a textbook encirclement strategy. Whoever had trained these humans knew Confederation tactics. Channel open, Captain, Vril announced. Chen took a deep breath. Captain Reynolds, I understand your position and your caution. What happened to your world is unconscionable. But I give you my word as a Confederation officer that the attack on Earth was not sanctioned by our government. If Confederation ships were involved, they were acting against our most fundamental laws. The response, when it came, was cold. Pretty words, Captain Chen, but you understand why they ring hollow from where I'm standing. I do, Chen acknowledged, which is why I propose an exchange. Let me send you our ship's complete database on Confederation activities in this sector for the past 5 standard years. In return, I ask for your records of the attack on your world. There was a long pause, likely Reynolds conferring with his officers. Sending you our complete record would compromise Earth's security, he finally replied. Then send what you can, Chen countered. Whatever you're comfortable sharing. I need to understand what happened if I'm to help discover the truth. Another pause, longer this time. Transmitting now, Reynolds said eventually. But understand this, Captain. If this is some kind of trick, the next communication you receive will be from our missile arrays. The data package arrived seconds later. Chen nodded to her intelligence officer, who began processing the information immediately. Lieutenant Commander Orcs, Chen said quietly. What's your assessment of our tactical situation? The Taurian's expression was grim. 23 human vessels, Captain. Their technology is crude by our standards, but their numbers are concerning. Their positioning suggests they've studied Confederation battle doctrines. Most troubling is their use of short-range FTL jumps. They've demonstrated the ability to coordinate precision jumps within a combat scenario. That's unusual for a species at their development stage. They've had motivation to advance quickly, Chen noted, watching as the first images from Earth began to display on her private screen. The devastation was horrific. Orbital strikes on population centers, systematic targeting of infrastructure. This wasn't random violence. It was calculated to cripple without completely destroying. To subjugate rather than annihilate. This wasn't a rogue element, she murmured, more to herself than to Orcs. This was too organized, too precise. She looked up, and those are definitely Confederation ship designs. Could they be faked? Orcs suggested. Visual deception to frame the Confederation. To what end? Chen countered. And who would have access to such accurate Confederation ship templates? She scrolled through more images, pausing on one that showed a clear view of the attacking vessel's commander. Her blood ran cold. Dax, she called sharply. Pull up the personnel file for Admiral Voss there. The censor officer looked confused but complied. A moment later, the image of a distinguished Arcturian officer appeared on screen. Chen placed it side by side with the image from Earth's records. It's him, she whispered. One of the Confederation's most decorated fleet commanders, leading an unauthorized attack on a pre-contact civilization. This goes higher than I thought. She opened the channel to the Defiant again. Captain Reynolds, I've reviewed your data. The commander of the fleet that attacked Earth is Admiral Voss there, an Arcturian fleet commander who officially retired from service 3 standard years ago. His retirement apparently included acquiring several decommissioned vessels and leading an attack on your world. You recognize him, Reynolds said, not a question but an accusation. I do, Chen admitted. He was respected, decorated. I never served under him directly, but his tactics were taught at the academy. She paused. What I don't understand is why. The Confederation has strict protocols about non-interference with developing worlds. For an admiral to violate those protocols so blatantly, maybe your Confederation isn't as united as you believe, Reynolds suggested, his voice slightly less hostile than before. Or maybe Earth was targeted for a specific reason. Chen considered this. The timing of your technological advancement is remarkable. To go from planetary travel to functional FTL in less than 2 decades is unprecedented. There was a pause before Reynolds responded. We had help. Before Chen could ask for clarification, her intelligence officer approached. Captain, I've completed my preliminary analysis of the Earth data. There's something you need to see. On her screen appeared a series of communications logs, Confederation encryption, but using outdated protocols that hadn't been in service for at least 30 years. These are communications between Admiral Thur's fleet, the intelligence officer explained. The humans managed to decrypt some of them after the attack. Chen scanned the messages, her confusion growing. References to securing the asset and preventing premature exposure. And then, most damning of all, a direct reference to the Arcturus contingency. The Arcturus contingency, a theoretical protocol that had been proposed and immediately rejected by the Confederation Council nearly 50 years ago. A protocol that suggested preemptive strikes against civilizations that showed signs of developing technologies that could threaten Confederation security. It had never been implemented, officially. Captain Reynolds, Chen said slowly, I believe I know why Earth was targeted. Your world was developing something that certain elements within the Confederation saw as a threat. Our FTL drive, Reynolds confirmed, but not just any drive. 15 years ago, a ship crashed in the Pacific Ocean. The sole survivor was an Arcturian scientist named Kellis Ven. She was dying, but before she passed, she shared her research with us. She claimed to be a refugee, fleeing from political persecution. Chen closed her eyes briefly. Kellis Ven, one of the Confederation's most brilliant theoretical physicists, reported missing after her research vessel disappeared during an experiment. Her work had focused on non-standard approaches to faster-than-light travel. Ven's drive design, Chen said, it's different from standard Confederation technology, isn't it? It uses principles your Confederation apparently abandoned centuries ago, Reynolds confirmed. More efficient, less detectable, and with certain military applications that your people found concerning. The pieces were falling into place. A rogue scientist with revolutionary drive technology, a faction within the Confederation military that saw that technology as a threat. A preemptive strike meant to eliminate that threat before it could spread. Captain Reynolds, Chen said firmly, I need to contact my superiors immediately. What happened to Earth wasn't just a crime against your people. It was a conspiracy that threatens the foundation of the Confederation itself. Reynolds' laugh was without humor. And you expect me to just let you call home? To warn whoever was behind this that we've made contact. I expect you to recognize that you now have an ally who can help expose those responsible. Chen countered. Someone has to answer for what happened to Earth, and the full Confederation needs to know what some of its members have done in its name. The silence stretched long enough that Chen wondered if Reynolds had cut the communication. I'll discuss it with my command, he finally said. In the meantime, you'll remain where you are, surrounded by our fleet. Any attempt to leave or to send unauthorized communications will be interpreted as hostile action. The channel closed, leaving Chen staring at the stars beyond her view screen. Somewhere out there, a faction within her own government had committed an atrocity, had triggered humanity's rapid militarization, had potentially started a war the Confederation wasn't prepared to fight. and she was caught in the middle, trying to prevent a second contact from becoming a second catastrophe. 12 hours had passed since first contact, and Chen hadn't slept. The harmonious exploration remained surrounded by the human fleet, its engines cold, its weapons powered down in a gesture of non-aggression that felt increasingly like vulnerability. On the bridge, the crew maintained their stations with quiet professionalism, but Chen could see the strain in their eyes. No Confederation vessel had ever found itself in this position before, held hostage by a species that by all official records shouldn't even have achieved interstellar travel. "Captain," Vril called from communications, breaking the tense silence. "Incoming transmission from the Defiant." Chen straightened her uniform. "Put it through." Reynolds' face appeared on the view screen this time, not just his voice. The human commander looked as exhausted as Chen felt, his features sharp under harsh lighting, eyes shadowed but alert. Behind him, Chen could make out a command center bustling with activity. "Captain Chen," he said without preamble, "my superiors have made a decision. We're sending a delegation to your vessel. 5 officers, including myself. We want to see your logs, your communications, everything you have on Admiral Thayer, and this Arcturus contingency." Chen blinked in surprise. "You're willing to board our vessel? That's a significant show of trust, Captain." Reynolds' expression hardened. "Trust has nothing to do with it. We've analyzed your ship thoroughly. We know exactly what it's capable of, and we'll have 19 warships surrounding you the entire time. One suspicious move, and they have orders to open fire." Chen understood then. This wasn't trust. It was calculated risk. The humans needed information that only the Confederation databases could provide, and they'd decided the potential reward outweighed the danger. "I understand," she said simply. "We'll prepare for your arrival." The human delegation arrived 30 minutes later, transported via shuttle to the Harmonious Exploration's main docking bay. Chen met them personally, accompanied by Orcs and 2 security officers, a minimal escort to avoid any appearance of threat. Reynolds was first through the airlock, his hand resting casually near what Chen assumed was a weapon. Behind him came 4 others, a tall woman with dark skin and the bearing of a tactical officer, an older man whose uniform insignia marked him as a scientist, a younger man carrying what appeared to be scanning equipment, and finally, a slight figure in a different uniform entirely, their face partially obscured by a hood. "Welcome aboard the Harmonious Exploration," Chen said formally. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen. This is my second-in-command, Lieutenant Commander Orcs." Reynolds nodded stiffly. "Captain Thomas Reynolds, Earth Defense Force." "This is Commander Annika Patel, Tactical, Dr. Richard Zhao, Science Division, Lieutenant Will Cooper, Security, and," he hesitated almost imperceptibly, "Special Consultant Gray." Chen noticed how the hooded figure stayed slightly apart from the others, how the human security officer positioned himself between this consultant and the Confederation crew. There was a story there, but now wasn't the time to press. "We've prepared access to our databases in the main conference room," Chen said, gesturing toward the corridor. "If you'll follow me." The walk through the ship was silent and tense. Chen was acutely aware of the human's eyes cataloging everything: the layout, the technology, the crew complement. Lieutenant Cooper's scanning device hummed softly as they walked, no doubt gathering data on everything it encountered. In the conference room, Chen authorized full access to the ship's non-classified databases and stepped back. "I've given you everything we have on Admiral Thayer, his service record, his known associates, and his last official missions before retirement. Unfortunately, what happens after retirement isn't typically tracked by Confederation systems." Dr. Zhao moved to the terminal immediately, fingers flying across the unfamiliar interface with surprising confidence. "You mentioned the Arcturus contingency," he said without looking up. "Show us everything you have on that." Chen hesitated. The Arcturus contingency was never officially implemented. It exists mainly as a historical footnote in our diplomatic archives. But it was proposed. Reynolds pressed. By whom? And why was it rejected? Chen accessed another database. It was proposed 53 standard years ago by a coalition led by Admiral Kovar Voss Thur's father. The premise was that certain technological developments, if allowed to proliferate among non-Confederation species, could destabilize the galactic balance of power. And your government rejected it. Commander Patel asked skeptically. Unanimously, Chen confirmed. The Confederation was founded on principles of peaceful coexistence and gradual integration of new species. Preemptive military action against developing worlds contradicts our most fundamental values. Yet here we are, Reynolds said coldly. The hooded figure, Consultant Gray, had remained silent until now, standing apart from the others. Suddenly they spoke, their voice soft but clear. Captain Chen, does the name Kellis Ven appear in your personnel records? Chen felt her skin prickle with unease. It does. She was a theoretical physicist, specializing in alternative FTL mechanics. Her research vessel was lost approximately 17 of your years ago. Gray pushed back their hood, revealing features that made Chen's breath catch. The face was humanoid, but with the distinctive violet eyes and cranial ridges of an Arcturian. Yet there was something else there. Subtle differences in the bone structure, in the skin tone. I'm Elara Gray, the figure said. Kellis Ven was my mother. The room fell silent. That's impossible, Orcs rumbled from beside Chen. Arcturians cannot reproduce with. My mother's research wasn't limited to drive technology. Gray cut in. Genetic compatibility was another of her interests, one that made her even more of a target for traditionalists within the Confederation. Chen struggled to process this revelation. You're saying Kellis Ven didn't die in a crash on Earth. She lived long enough to continue her work, long enough to help Earth prepare for what she knew was coming, long enough to have a child with a human scientist. Gray's expression was unreadable. She knew the Arcturus contingency wasn't as dead as your council believed. She knew who still supported it, who was willing to act on it outside official channels. Names, Chen said urgently. We need names. Before Gray could respond, Lieutenant Cooper's scanner emitted a shrill alarm. Sir, he called to Reynolds, I'm detecting a power surge in the Confederation ship's communication array. Chen whirled toward the nearest terminal. That's impossible. All external communications are locked down by my authorization. Reynolds' weapon was suddenly in his hand, aimed squarely at Chen's chest. Someone on your ship is sending a message, Captain. The question is, did you order it, or do you have a traitor in your midst? Orcs moved to another terminal, his massive fingers working with surprising delicacy. He's right, Captain. Someone's activated the emergency beacon. The signal's encrypted, but his mandibles clicked in agitation. It's not a standard distress call. This is a directed transmission on a classified channel. Chen felt ice in her veins. To home. Coordinates placed the recipient at the Arcturus system. Orcs looked up, his alien features conveying clear alarm. Admiral Thur's last known location. Shut it down, Chen ordered. Now. I can't, Orcs admitted. The transmission's being routed through multiple subsystems. Whoever set this up knew our security protocols intimately. Reynolds' face had gone hard as stone. You've just signed your crew's death warrant, Captain. It wasn't me. Chen insisted, feeling control of the situation slipping away. I gave you my word, Captain. Vrill's voice came urgently over the ship-wide comm. Multiple Confederation signatures just appeared on long-range sensors. 8? No. 12 vessels dropping out of FTL. Transponders identify them as the 9th Battle Group. They're on an intercept course, Captain. Arrival estimated in 43 minutes. The 9th Battle Group. Admiral Vostar's former command. We need to go. Now. Reynolds gestured sharply to his team, his weapon never wavering from Chen's position. Cooper, signal the fleet. Battle stations. Wait. Chen stepped forward, ignoring the weapon. Captain Reynolds, think about this. If I wanted to ambush you, why would I give you access to our databases first? Why would I show you information about the Arcturus contingency that links directly to Thur's family? Reynolds hesitated, eyes searching her face. Someone on my crew is working for Thur, Chen continued urgently. Someone with high-level access to our communication systems. If you leave now, you're giving them exactly what they want. Confirmation that Earth is actively hostile to the Confederation. Thur will use that to justify finishing what he started 17 years ago. She's right, Gray said quietly. This is the same pattern my mother documented. Provocation, response, escalation. The Arcturus doctrine requires a pretext for military action. Indecision warred on Reynolds' face. 23 Earth ships against 12 Confederation vessels would be a massacre, but not the humans would be the ones devastated. Despite their impressive advancement, they were still outmatched by centuries of Confederation military technology. 40 minutes until they arrive, Chen said, her voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. That's how long we have to find the traitor on my ship and decide whether this first meeting ends in alliance or annihilation. Reynolds lowered his weapon a fraction. And if we can't find your traitor, then we face Thur together, Chen said grimly. Because if he wins here, Earth won't be his last target. The Confederation itself will be next. 38 minutes, Chen announced, her voice cutting through the heated argument that had erupted among the human delegation. Every second we waste reduces our chances of survival. Reynolds holstered his weapon, but his posture remained tense, coiled like a spring. Fine. We work together. For now. But my ships stay on alert, and my people remain armed. He turned to Cooper. Contact the fleet. Tell them to maintain defensive positions but prepare for possible Confederation reinforcements. As Cooper relayed the orders, Chen accessed the main terminal. The emergency beacon was activated from a secure station with command-level authorization. There are only 3 people aboard with that level of access: myself, Orcs, and Chief of Security Tavros. Orcs finished, mandibles clicking in distress. He served under Admiral Thur for 12 years before being assigned to the Harmonious Exploration. That's our traitor, Chen said grimly. Computer, locate Chief Tavros. The ship's AI responded immediately. Chief Tavros is in Engineering Section Delta. Engineering. Chen frowned. Why would he? Her eyes widened in sudden understanding. The drive core. Orcs, lock down all engineering sections now. Orcs was already moving, fingers flying across the terminal. Security override engage. All engineering compartments sealed. What's happening? Reynolds demanded. If Tavros sabotages our drive core, he could disable your fleet with the resulting electromagnetic pulse. Chen explained rapidly. Then we'd be helpless when Thur arrives. I need to get to my ship, Reynolds said immediately. If your traitor succeeds, he won't. Chen cut in. But I need your help to stop him. Your scanner. She nodded to Cooper's device. It can detect power. Fluctuations, yes. We can use it to track Tavros's movements through the power grid. Reynolds hesitated only briefly before nodding to Cooper, who stepped forward with the scanner. This was hidden on your ship for months, Gray said suddenly, studying a display showing the emergency beacon's signal pattern. The code structure is elegant. Whoever did this wasn't working alone. Thur has supporters throughout the Confederation, Chen acknowledged grimly. The question is how deep the conspiracy goes. The terminal in front of Gray suddenly flickered, the display distorting. Someone's accessing the system remotely, Gray muttered, fingers dancing across the controls with surprising familiarity. They're trying to purge the databases we were just examining. Can you stop it? Reynolds asked. Gray didn't answer, too focused on the digital battle unfolding. After several tense seconds, the display stabilized. I've isolated the terminal they're using. Officers' quarters, Deck 4, Section 12. That's not Tavros, Chen said, checking the ship's internal sensors. That's Lieutenant Dax's quarters. Reynolds' expression darkened. Your sensor officer. The one who first detected our approach. Not just one traitor, Oris rumbled. Two. Or more, Chen said, feeling the ground shifting beneath her feet. Who else on her crew had been compromised? How deep did this betrayal go? 32 minutes until Thur's fleet arrives. Vril announced over the comm. Ken made a decision. Commander Patel, Dr. Zhao, stay here with Oris. Continue searching the databases for information on Thur's conspiracy. Captain Reynolds, Gray, Cooper, come with me. We need to secure engineering before Tavros can complete whatever he's planning. They moved swiftly through the corridors of the harmonious exploration, the ship's emergency lights casting everything in an eerie blue glow. Chen had ordered a partial evacuation of non-essential personnel to the habitation decks, leaving the corridors eerily empty. How many crew aboard your ship? Reynolds asked as they hurried toward engineering. 143, Chen replied. Most are scientific or diplomatic personnel. We only have 20 security officers. And how many might be loyal to Thur? Chen's jaw tightened. I don't know. That's what scares me. They'd reached the sealed doors to Engineering Section Delta. Cooper's scanner hummed to life. I'm detecting unusual power fluctuations inside. Someone's definitely tampering with something. Can you override the lock? Reynolds asked Chen. She nodded, placing her palm on the security panel. Captain Sarah Chen, emergency override Sigma 73. The doors remained sealed. Security protocols have been altered, she realized with growing alarm. Tavros must have. A deafening explosion rocked the ship, throwing them against the corridor walls. Alarm klaxons wailed as the deck beneath their feet trembled. That wasn't the drive core, Chen gasped, pulling herself upright. That came from the docking bay. Gray finished, steadying themselves against the wall. Where our shuttle is docked. Cooper's scanner was already tracking the damage. Multiple hull breaches in docking section Alpha. Explosive decompression in progress. Emergency bulkheads are engaging. Reynolds grabbed his communicator. Reynolds to Defiant. Report. Static answered him. The explosion must be interfering with communications, Cooper suggested, adjusting his device. The ship's intercom crackled to life, but instead of Vril's voice, they heard a deep, unfamiliar tone that sent ice through Chen's veins. Attention crew of the harmonious exploration. This is Chief Security Officer Tavros. Captain Chen has been compromised by human infiltrators. All loyal Confederation personnel are ordered to report to emergency stations and prepare to repel boarders. Security teams are authorized to use lethal force against the humans and any crew members aiding them. He's turning my crew against us, Chen whispered in horror. This was the plan all along, Gray said, their voice tight with urgency. Provoke a conflict on your ship, ensure the humans are blamed, give fair justification for a full-scale military response. Another explosion shook. The ship, smaller this time, but no less concerning. Captain. Oris's voice broke through on Chen's personal communicator. Security teams are mobilizing throughout the ship. They're not responding to my orders. And something else. His voice dropped. Long-range sensors have detected another group of ships approaching from the opposite vector, not Confederation design. More Earth ships? Chen asked, looking at Reynolds. The human captain shook his head, his expression grim. All our vessels are accounted for in the defensive perimeter. Unknown configuration, Oris continued. But their drive signatures. He paused. Captain, they match the theoretical models in Kellisven's research. The alternative FTL design. Gray's face went pale. That's impossible. Earth hasn't shared that technology with anyone else. The pieces suddenly clicked together in Chen's mind with horrifying clarity. Unless Kellisven wasn't running from the Confederation at all. What are you saying? Reynolds demanded. Think about it, Chen said, mind racing. A brilliant scientist supposedly dies in an accident. Years later, ships with her experimental drive signature appeared just as Confederation and human forces are about to clash. What if her crash on Earth was deliberate? What if she was never running from the Arcturus contingency, but implementing it from the outside? Gray shook their head vehemently. No, my mother was trying to protect humanity, not destroy it. She warned us about Thur, about the Confederation. She positioned Earth as a threat to the Confederation. Chen countered. She accelerated your technological development in ways that would alarm Confederation security. She practically guaranteed Thur would take action. And now a third force enters the equation just as we're on the brink of war. Reynolds finished, the implications dawning on his face. A force with technology neither of our civilizations fully understands. The ship rocked again as weapons fire echoed from a nearby corridor. 26 minutes until Thur's fleet arrives, Cooper reported grimly. And the unknown vessels will reach us in approximately 35 minutes. They were trapped in a closing vice. Tavros and his loyalists from within, Thur's battle group from one direction, and mysterious ships wielding experimental technology from another. And somewhere in the midst of it all lay the truth about Kellis Fen, and a conspiracy that had been decades in the making. We need to reach the bridge, Chen decided. Take back control of the ship before Tavros can do any more damage. And then what? Reynolds asked. Even if we secure your ship, we're still facing overwhelming odds from two directions. Chen met his gaze steadily. Then we do what neither Thur nor Ven expected. We stand together. The sound of approaching footsteps halted their conversation. A squad of security officers rounded the corner, weapons raised. Captain Chen, the lead officer called, his weapon trained squarely on her chest. By order of Chief Tavros, you are relieved of command. Surrender the humans immediately. Chen stepped forward, placing herself between the security team and the humans. I am still captain of this vessel. Stand down, Lieutenant. The officer's finger tightened on his weapon's trigger. I have my orders, Captain. The humans have compromised you. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Behind her, Chen heard Reynolds whisper to Gray and Cooper, on my signal, be ready to move. 24 minutes until Thur arrived. 33 until the unknown ships reached them. And mere seconds before blood was spilled on her own ship, time was running out. Time slowed as Chen stared down the barrel of her own security officer's weapon. Behind her, she could feel Reynolds tensing, preparing for whatever desperate move he had planned. But violence would only prove Tavros right, that humans and Confederation couldn't coexist. Lieutenant Saren, Chen addressed the security officer by name, keeping her voice steady. You've served on this ship for 3 years. You know me. Think about what you're doing. Uncertainty flickered across Saren's features. Chief Tavros says the humans have compromised you. That they're manipulating you. And you believe that. Chen took a careful step forward. Look at what's happening. Tavros activated an emergency beacon without authorization. He's locked down engineering. He's turning crew against crew. Ask yourself, who's really acting in the Confederation's best interest? The security team exchanged glances. Doubt was spreading among them. 22 minutes until Thur's fleet arrives. Cooper murmured behind her. Chen pushed her advantage. Lieutenant, scan the approaching Confederation vessels. Check their registration codes against the official Confederation database. Saren hesitated, then nodded to one of his officers, who pulled out a datavad. After a moment, the officer looked up, confusion evident. Sir, these vessels are listed as decommissioned. They were officially scrapped 3 years ago. Because Thur is operating outside Confederation authority. Chen pressed. He attacked Earth 17 years ago without authorization. He's coming back to finish what he started, and he's using loyal officers like you to help him do it. Saren's weapon lowered slightly. Why would an admiral do this? Power, Reynolds said suddenly, stepping up beside Chen. The Arcturus contingency isn't just about eliminating threats. It's about restructuring the Confederation itself. A distant explosion rocked the ship again. "We don't have time for this," Chen said urgently. "Lieutenant, I need your help to retake the bridge. Whatever your concerns about the humans, Tavros is actively damaging this ship. That's not protecting the Confederation. It's endangering everyone aboard." Saren finally lowered his weapon. "What are your orders, Captain?" "Secure engineering. Find Tavros." Chen turned to Reynolds. "We need to get to the bridge and warn both our fleets about the incoming unknown vessels." Saren dispatched half his team toward engineering, while leading the rest alongside Chen's group toward the bridge. They encountered sporadic resistance, confused crew members who had heard Tavros' announcement and didn't know who to trust. Chen's presence helped sway most of them, but not all. The ship was dividing into factions, just as Tavros, and presumably Thayer, had intended. 18 minutes, Cooper reported as they approached the bridge. The bridge doors were sealed. Chen placed her palm on the scanner. "Access denied," the computer announced. "Command authority has been transferred to Chief Security Officer Tavros. Can you override it?" Reynolds asked. Before Chen could answer, Gray stepped forward. "Let me try something." They produced a small device from within their clothing and attached it to the control panel. "My mother's design. It's meant to bypass Confederation security protocols." "Your mother seems to have planned for everything," Chen observed, her suspicion growing. The device hummed for several seconds, then the bridge doors slid open. Inside, the bridge was in chaos. Vril sat at communications, frantically trying to establish contact with someone. Dax was nowhere to be seen. Several other officers looked up in shock as Chen entered, flanked by humans and armed security. "Captain." Vril's 4 eyes blinked rapidly in relief. "We've lost contact with half the ship. Tavros has locked out most of the command functions. And where's Dax?" Chen demanded. "He left 10 minutes ago," Vril replied. "Said he was going to help security teams contain the humans." "He's the second traitor," Chen explained rapidly. "Working with Tavros. Lieutenant Saren, find him." As Saren dispatched officers to search for Dax, Chen moved to the captain's station. Her code still didn't work, but Gray's device, applied again, unlocked the console. 16 minutes until Thayer's fleet arrives," Cooper announced, consulting his scanner. "The unknown vessels are now 29 minutes out." Chen accessed the ship's communication systems. "This is Captain Chen to all Harmonious Exploration personnel. Chief Tavros has betrayed the Confederation. He is working with Rogue Admiral Thayer, who was responsible for the unprovoked attack on Earth 17 years ago. Any orders from Tavros or Lieutenant Dax are to be disregarded. This is not a human deception. I repeat, this is not a human deception." Reynolds moved to stand beside her. "We need to warn my fleet about all of this." Chen nodded, opening a channel to the Defiant. "Captain Reynolds XO, this is Confederation Captain Chen. Your captain is safe aboard my vessel. We are facing a 3-sided conflict. Rogue Confederation forces are approaching, led by the same admiral who attacked Earth previously. Additionally, unknown vessels with experimental drive signatures are approaching from the opposite vector. These may be connected to the scientist Kellis Ven." There was a moment of static before a response came. "Copy that, Confederation vessel. What are Captain Reynolds' orders?" Reynolds leaned in. "Commander Alvarez, maintain defensive formation, but prepare for potential engagement from 2 vectors. And watch for sabotage. There may be traitors among the Confederation crew who could attempt to disable our systems." As they coordinated their forces, an alarm sounded from engineering. "Captain," Oris's voice came over the comm. "We've located Tavros in auxiliary control. He's initiated a core destabilization sequence. If successful, it will create an electromagnetic pulse that will disable both our ships and the human fleet. Can you stop it?" Chen demanded. "We're trying, but he's locked us out of the primary systems. We need direct access to auxiliary control." Chen turned to Saren. "Take your team. Secure auxiliary control immediately. As Saren's team departed, Gray, who had been working at a secondary console, suddenly looked up. "Captain Chen, I've been analyzing the signal pattern from those approaching unknown vessels. There's something familiar about it." "Familiar how?" Reynolds asked, moving to look over Gray's shoulder. "The encryption. It's similar to—" Gray hesitated. "It's similar to the personal code my mother used in her private communications." "So it is then," Chen said grimly. Gray shook their head, confusion evident. "But that's impossible. My mother died 10 years ago. I watched her die." "Did you?" Chen asked sharply. "Or did she fake her death, just as she faked her crash landing on Earth?" Before Gray could respond, the tactical display flashed a warning. "Multiple weapons powering up." Vril called out. "Thar's fleet has accelerated. New estimated arrival in 8 minutes. They must have detected our communications," Reynolds said. "They know we're working together." Chen accessed the ship's defensive systems. "We need more time." "Oris, status on the core destabilization." 30% and rising, Oris reported. "Saren's team is encountering heavy resistance outside auxiliary control. Tavros has loyalists with him. If that pulse goes off, we're all dead when Ther arrives," Reynolds muttered. Gray suddenly straightened. "I can stop it." "How?" Chen demanded. "My mother built backdoors into nearly every system she ever worked with, including Confederation drive cores." Gray's fingers flew across the console. "I just need tow." The ship lurched violently, throwing them all against the nearest bulkheads. Emergency lights flashed as multiple system alerts screamed for attention. "What was that?" Reynolds shouted over the alarms. "Directed energy weapon," Vril reported, clinging to her station. "It didn't come from Ther's fleet. It's from the unknown vessels." "Impossible." Cooper checked his scanner. "They're still 20 minutes out. Unless they have weapons we don't understand," Chen realized with growing horror. The view screen activated without command, displaying a face that made Gray gasp audibly. An Arcturian woman, older than the records Chen had seen, but unmistakable nonetheless. "Kellis Ven," Chen whispered. "Hello, Captain Chen." "Captain Reynolds." Ven's voice was calm, almost pleasant. "I apologize for the demonstration, but I needed your attention." "Mother." Gray stepped forward, disbelief etched across their features. "You're alive." Ven's expression softened momentarily. "Ilara, I'm sorry for the deception, but it was necessary. As you're now discovering, the game has always been more complex than either Earth or the Confederation realized." "What game?" Reynolds demanded. "You've manipulated both sides into the brink of war." "Why?" "Because war was inevitable," Ven replied simply. "The Confederation has grown complacent, corrupt. Earth was developing too quickly, too aggressively. Left to your own devices, you would have destroyed each other eventually. I merely accelerated the timeline, controlled the conditions." "To what end?" Chen asked, even as she signaled Vril to trace the transmission. Ven smiled. "Evolution, Captain. The next step for both our civilizations. Neither the Confederation's stagnant bureaucracy nor Earth's unchecked expansion is sustainable. What emerges from this conflict will be stronger, more balanced." "You're insane," Reynolds said flatly. "Millions died when Ther attacked Earth." "Unfortunate, but necessary sacrifices," Ven replied. "And speaking of Ther, his fleet will reach you in approximately 6 minutes. My vessels will arrive shortly after. But the real question is whether you'll survive that long." Her eyes shifted to Gray. "Ilara, my child, it's time to complete your mission." Gray stepped back, confusion and hurt warring on their face. "What mission?" "I came to expose Ther's conspiracy." "You came because I wanted you here," Ven corrected gently. "The final component of my plan. The genetic modifications I made to you weren't just for compatibility with your human father. You carry within you the key to the next phase." Understanding dawned on Chen's face. "Gray is a weapon." "A catalyst," Ven corrected. genetically engineered to interface with both Confederation and Earth technology, to bring them together in a way neither side could predict or prevent. Gray's hand went to their chest, horror spreading across their features. "What did you do to me?" "The real question," Ven said, her smile never wavering, "is what you're about to do to them." Gray doubled over suddenly, gasping in pain. Cooper moved to help them, but Reynolds held him back, watching with wary eyes. "What's happening to them?" Chen demanded. "The final sequence has begun," Ven said simply, "activated by proximity to both a Confederation drive core and human biometric signatures. Clever, isn't it?" Gray collapsed to the deck, body convulsing. From their skin, a faint blue glow began to emanate, pulsing in rhythm with the ship's own power signature. "Stop this," Reynolds shouted at the screen. "I can't," Ven replied. "Even if I wanted to. The process is autonomous now. In approximately 4 minutes, Ilara will generate a field that will merge the quantum signatures of your vessel and the human fleet. The resulting reaction will create a temporary wormhole, drawing in third ships and my own. All our forces together in one place, outside normal spacetime." "That's impossible," Chen whispered. "The energy requirements alone would destroy conventional drive cores." "Yes," Ven agreed. "But what emerges on the other side will be something new. Something better." Her expression grew serious. "This isn't the end, Captain Chen, Captain Reynolds. It's merely transformation." The transmission cut abruptly as Gray's convulsions intensified, the blue glow spreading across the bridge deck. 3 minutes until Thur's fleet arrives," Vril reported shakily. "And, whatever this is, seems to be accelerating." Chen and Reynolds exchanged looks. Enemies turned reluctant allies, now facing extinction together. "Is there any way to stop this?" Reynolds asked quietly. Chen knelt beside Gray's trembling form. The half-human, half-Arcturian looked up at her with eyes now glowing the same eerie blue as their skin. "I didn't know," Gray whispered. "I swear I didn't know." "I believe you," Chen said gently, then looked up at Reynolds. "There's always a way." As Thur's fleet appeared on the edge of their sensors and Gray's transformation reached its peak, Chen made the decision that would change everything, not just for her crew or for Earth, but for the future of all their civilizations. "Get me a direct neural interface," Chen ordered, extending her hand toward Cooper. "Your scanner can be modified, yes?" The human lieutenant hesitated, looking to Reynolds. "Do it," Reynolds said firmly. "Whatever you're planning, Captain, make it quick. We have less than 2 minutes." Cooper handed over his scanner. Chen worked rapidly, fingers dancing across its interface, reprogramming the device with Confederation protocols. "If Gray is designed to interface with both our technologies, then perhaps I can use that connection to interrupt the process," she explained, voice calm despite the chaos around them. "It's not about stopping the reaction completely. That's impossible now. But we might be able to control it, direct it." As she worked, Reynolds opened a channel to his fleet. "All Earth vessels, this is Captain Reynolds. Prepare for unusual energy readings. Do not, repeat, do not attempt to flee or engage. Whatever happens in the next few minutes, maintain formation and stand by." Gray's convulsions had stopped, their body now rigid, floating several inches above the deck, suspended in a corona of blue-white energy that pulsed in perfect synchronization with the ship's power grid. "What exactly are you attempting, Captain?" Orcs asked, mandibles clicking nervously as he monitored the energy readings. "Ven's plan hinges on merging our technologies, our ships, perhaps even our people," Chen said, making final adjustments to the scanner. "But she's assuming the merger will happen on her terms. She's controlling the variables. Thur's hostility, the timing of her fleet's arrival, Gray's transformation. But there's one thing she doesn't control." "What's that?" Reynolds asked. Chen looked up, determination in her eyes. "Our choice to work together." The modified scanner was ready. Chen approached Gray's suspended form. the device held before her. If I'm right, this will establish a direct link between my neural patterns and Gray's. I can then attempt to influence the direction of the energy field. And, if you're wrong, Reynolds asked quietly, then we all die a few minutes earlier than Ven planned. Chen replied with grim humor, but at least on our own terms. 1 minute until Thur's fleet is in weapons range, Vril reported. Energy readings from Gray are approaching critical levels. Chen looked at Reynolds. Captain, I need your help. This interface was designed for one mind, but Ven's plan involves both our peoples. If we both connect, Reynolds nodded immediately, understanding. 2 minds, 2 perspectives, human and Confederation, working in concert. It might give us the leverage we need, Chen confirmed. How do we do this? Reynolds asked, stepping closer. Physical contact with me as I establish the link should be sufficient, Chen said. Your neural patterns will cascade through mine into the interface. Reynolds placed his hand firmly on Chen's shoulder. Together then. Chen activated the modified scanner and pressed it against Gray's glowing chest. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. A surge of energy that engulfed both captains, connecting their minds not just to Gray but to the very fabric of the ship around them. Through that connection, they could feel the human fleet beyond, the approaching Confederation vessels, and further still, Ven's mysterious ships with their impossible drives. In that moment of perfect clarity, Chen understood Ven's true plan. The scientist hadn't been lying about transformation, but she had been selective with the truth. The wormhole wouldn't just transport their ships to another place. It would fundamentally alter the crews themselves, rewriting their genetic code, their very consciousness. A forced evolution according to Ven's design. Through their shared connection, Reynolds understood it too. Not in words, but in concepts, impressions that flowed between their linked minds. We can redirect it, Chen thought. Where? Came Reynolds' response. Images flashed between them. Star charts, coordinates, possibilities. They settled on a destination together, a decision made in perfect synchronicity. Around them, the bridge vanished in blinding light. The last thing Chen heard was Vril's voice announcing, Thur's fleet is opening fire. Then there was nothing but the rush of energy, the sensation of movement without motion, of being everywhere and nowhere at once. Then, darkness. Chen awoke to the soft hum of medical equipment. Her eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the subdued lighting of what appeared to be a Confederation medical bay. Orcs stood nearby, his massive frame instantly recognizable. Captain, he rumbled, mandibles clicking in what Chen had learned to recognize as relief. You're awake. How long? She asked, her throat dry. 3 days, Orcs replied, offering her water. We were concerned. As Chen's mind cleared, memories came rushing back. Reynolds, the human fleet. There. Captain Reynolds regained consciousness yesterday. Orcs informed her. The human fleet is intact, as is ours. As for Thayer, his mandibles clicked again, this time in something like amazement. Perhaps you should see for yourself, once the doctor clears you. It was another 6 hours before Chen was allowed to leave the medical bay. She found Reynolds waiting for her in the corridor, looking as exhausted as she felt but very much alive. Captain, he greeted her with a nod that held new respect. Quite a journey we've had. Where exactly are we? Chen asked as they walked toward what she assumed was the bridge. That's the interesting part, Reynolds replied. According to your navigation officer, we're approximately 12 light years from where we started. All 3 fleets, yours, mine, and Thur's, were transported here. Ven's ships are nowhere to be found. And Gray. Reynolds' expression sobered. Alive, but changed. The doctors are still trying to understand exactly how. When they reached the bridge, Chen stopped short at the view screen. Beyond the ship lay a sight she had never expected to see. Confederation and Earth vessels positioned side by side, not in battle formation, but in what appeared to be a cooperative defense perimeter. And at the center, contained within that perimeter were Thair's ships. "They're disabled," Oris explained, noting her surprise. "When we emerged from the event, their weapons and engines were offline. They haven't been able to restore power." "We've boarded 3 of their vessels," Reynolds added. "Admiral Thair is in custody aboard the Defiant. He's been cooperative since we showed him what we found in their systems." "Which is?" Chen prompted. Oris brought up a display showing lines of code, evidence that Ven had compromised their ships long before our encounter. "She's been manipulating Thair for years, feeding his paranoia about Earth, guiding his actions. The attack 17 years ago wasn't entirely his idea. Ven orchestrated it to accelerate Earth's technological development." "Using Thair as her unwitting pawn," Chen murmured, the final pieces falling into place. "And us as well." "The question remains," Reynolds said. "What exactly did we do with that neural link?" "We redirected the energy, yes, but something else happened too. Something neither of us planned." Chen studied the status reports flowing across nearby terminals. "We integrated the systems somehow. Not merging them completely as Ven intended, but creating compatibility." "More than compatibility," Oris interjected. "The humans can now operate Confederation technology intuitively, and we can do the same with theirs. It's as if the barriers between our technological approaches have been partially dissolved." "Not just technology," Reynolds added quietly. "When I woke up, I could understand your language. Not perfectly, but enough. And I'm not the only one. Crew members on both sides report the same phenomenon." Chen absorbed this information with growing wonder. "So instead of Ven's forced evolution, we created a bridge, a foundation for genuine cooperation." "There's more," Reynolds continued. "We've been in contact with both our governments. The Confederation Council is disturbed by Thair's actions and the evidence of a deeper conspiracy. They've dispatched an official diplomatic delegation. Earth's leaders are doing the same." "First contact," Chen said with a hint of irony. "The real one this time." Reynolds' mouth quirked in a smile. "Better late than never." "And Ven?" Chen asked. "Any sign of her or her ships?" "Nothing," Oris confirmed. "But Gray believes she survived. Says they can feel her somehow, through whatever connection was forged during the event." "She'll be back," Chen said with certainty. "This was just one move in her game. She'll have contingencies, and we'll be ready," Reynolds replied simply. "Together this time." In the days that followed, as the joint fleet prepared for the arrival of their respective diplomatic teams, Chen found herself increasingly on the Defiant, working with Reynolds to establish protocols for their unprecedented alliance. The integration of their technologies continued, guided now by their conscious cooperation rather than Ven's manipulation. Gray, once recovered, proved invaluable, their unique genetic structure providing insights into both civilizations' approaches to science, engineering, even social structures. The transformation they had undergone had left them with enhanced cognitive abilities and an intuitive understanding of the quantum relationships between systems, abilities they now chose to use on their own terms, not their mother's. One evening, as Chen and Reynolds stood in the Defiant's observation deck, watching crews from both fleets working together on repairs to Thair's captured vessels, Reynolds voiced the question that had been on both their minds. "Did we win, do you think? Or did Ven get what she wanted after all?" Chen considered this. "I think she wanted change, at any cost. She got that, but not the change she designed." She looked at the human captain. "I think we took her plan and made it our own. That's a kind of victory." "Fragile one," Reynolds noted. "There will be resistance on both sides. Not everyone will welcome this sudden alliance." "That's why we need to build on what happened here," Chen replied. "Document everything. Present a united front when the diplomats arrive. Show them that cooperation isn't just possible, it's already happening. And Thair's conspirators, the ones still embedded in the Confederation, "We'll find them," Chen said confidently. "With Earth's help." Fresh eyes see what familiar ones miss. Reynolds nodded slowly. "When I took command of the Defiant, I expected to spend my career defending Earth against alien threats. I never imagined I'd end up creating an alliance with one." "The universe rarely conforms to our expectations," Chen observed. "That's what makes exploration worthwhile." A week later, the diplomatic vessels arrived. As the ranking officers of the incident, Chen and Reynolds were called to present their report together. A joint testimony unprecedented in either civilization's history. They stood side by side in the Harmonious Exploration's newly repaired conference room, facing representatives from both their worlds. "The first meeting between our civilizations brought panic," Chen began, looking across the assembled dignitaries. "Fear, suspicion, the shadow of past violence. But what emerged from that chaos was something neither side anticipated. Understanding." Reynolds continued seamlessly. "Not merely tolerance or cautious cooperation, but genuine collaboration. We faced extinction together and found a third path, one that benefited both our peoples. We don't claim this will be easy," Chen added. "Cultural differences remain. Historical wounds still need healing. But we have proven that when faced with manipulation and aggression, humanity and the Confederation chose alliance over conflict. And in doing so," Reynolds concluded, "we may have changed the course of galactic history." As the diplomats began their formal discussions, Chen and Reynolds withdrew to the corridor outside. They had done their part. Now it was up to the politicians to build on the foundation they had created. "What will you do now?" Reynolds asked. "After all this is settled." Chen looked thoughtful. "There's a vast universe out there. Kellis Ven is still in it somewhere, planning her next move. Someone should find her before she tries again. Sounds like a mission that might require both Confederation experience and human intuition," Reynolds suggested with a raised eyebrow. Chen smiled slightly. "It might at that." Outside, the viewport beside them, Earth and Confederation ships moved in careful harmony, their crews learning each other's ways, forging connections that would outlast any official treaty. The panic of first contact had given way to something far more valuable: hope. And somewhere in the depths of space, watching through systems only she understood, Kellis Ven observed the unexpected outcome of her grand design. Not the controlled evolution she had planned, but perhaps something more interesting, more unpredictable. She smiled to herself as she plotted a new course. The game, after all, was just beginning.